All right, so today we're going to talk about overcoming objections. I did that in quotations for the title, and just then because I think that um, it's almost this thing that's gotten like such a bad reputation in our industry. It's like it just kind of blows my mind, to be honest. And so I want to talk about what I really think about that and how I help my clients with that, and how I feel like it's so confusing to me why it has gotten such kind of like a negative spin in our industry. And just want to talk about like the whole objections thing in general. Hey, Jess, because I think there is a lot that is kind of getting put out in our space that really, really hurts people in their business. I mean, I guess we'll just say it. And I think there is a way to shift that. So we're going to do that. I'm also giving away our content bundle. So this is the bundle that Megan and I have that is all about like content planning and repurposing, both from the strategic side in terms of being the creator of it, and from the team side in terms of organizing and repurposing it. All of that together in a bundle to help you get that out there more, because today we're also going to talk about overcoming objections in your content as well. So context there of why we're giving that away today. So anyway, any comment enters you to win. It's just a thank you from me for spending your time with me. Hey, Lisa. So you guys know I just appreciate it so much when y'all come each Monday. It means the world to me. It makes it so fun to like be here and interact with y'all. So content bundle is the thing today. Oh, yay. Patricia says it's such a great bundle, life-changing. Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. Thank you, Patricia. Okay, good. So get your comment in, get your life-changing bundle. All right. So the first thing I want to say about overcoming objections is I think that the thing that gives it kind of like a bad reputation in our space is that we think that it is such like a pushy, aggressive kind of thing. You know, I think it takes on like a very masculine mentality. And let's just say I don't agree with that, but that's not overcoming objections. I just wouldn't agree with pushing someone because I don't agree with pushing someone, right? That can be different than overcoming objections. Does that make sense? We've just associated overcoming objections with this like super masculine, forceful way of doing it. And I think that we have to separate those things out. Meaning, sure, like just like you can do anything in a really intensely forceful manner and not have it feel good, you can overcome objections in a really, really forceful way that just doesn't feel good. But you can also do it in a totally different way. It's not that all objection handling has to be that way. Does that make sense? And I think those two just get so kind of like mashed together in our space that everyone's like, no, I don't want to do that. And what I really believe is that I think there is like and I'm just using the terms feminine, masculine, because I think it's useful here, but I think there is a very feminine way to approach overcoming objections. It's something that I've like taught my clients and talked about for a really long time, because ultimately, what is it? It's sitting with someone's fears. It's sitting with like the stuff that's coming up for them. It's sitting with, you know, the not so like, you know, great topics. Sometimes it's sitting with like all the challenges. And what I always think of when I think of that is, one, is there a more nurturing thing we can do than sit in those challenges with people? I don't think so. And two, if we're doing that in our work together, isn't it kind of mind-bending and ridiculous that we would say, but never do it like on the front end with people? You know, it's kind of like being like, oh, so my role as a coach is to help my clients overcome all of the stuff that's keeping them stuck, but I would never fucking do that, like, you know, on the front end. Like, wait, what? Like last time I checked, that was kind of my job, right? So I'm not saying you have to like coach them for free or anything, but I am saying, can we see how crazy that is when we really think about it for a second, that, you know, we are supposed to be helping other people like live their dreams, get out of their own way, do all of those things. But then when it comes to helping them get out of their own way for something they want, like working with us, it's like run in the other direction and don't help them at all. Or like you're chasing them or something. Like, what? It just makes no sense, you know? Hey, Alessia. Oh, thank you, Sonia. I'm curious to hear what y'all think about this. Yeah, Shantae says such a great to reframe that. Oh my God, right. When you really think about it, you're like, oh my God, this is just stupid, actually, right? It just doesn't make any sense. So anyway, that's like one of the things I really want to talk about today is like this idea of like, yes, it doesn't have to be pushy, but also we don't want to go so far the other way too, where we're just like unwilling to sit with someone's stuff. Because for many of us, that's exactly what our people are hiring us to do. But this idea of like, don't chase, I think gets really misconstrued a lot of the time. Like, I think people take, when someone's saying like, don't chase, they take that to mean like, don't do anything. Don't follow up. Don't try to talk through an objection. Don't do any of those things, right? And to me, that makes no sense because one, those are literally tried and true business practices that have been studied significantly and show that they completely and totally impact sales outcomes. So to tell us not to do that thing that like is actually just proven to impact sales outcomes, not so helpful. And number two, I think there's a way to do these things that doesn't have to feel like a chase or a push, that gets to feel like a space holding, a nurturing, a supporting, right? And that's kind of the point I want to make today, is that there are really beautiful aligned ways to help someone with their objections, to objection handle, to do that one-on-one, to do that, like broader, larger scale. But if we get ourselves so stuck in this idea that we can't chase, we can't, follow up, or we seem desperate, then we're trapped, right? Like that's where we get stuck. And that's where people kind of like don't know what to do to continue to make sales, is because they're like, well, I can't chase, but my people have this stuck point. And so then what a lot of people do, and like raise your hand or tell me if you've done this or heard of this, what a lot of people will do then is be like, well, then I just have the wrong audience because my audience has objections. And so I can't overcome them. I'm not supposed to chase them. I'm not supposed to do any of that. And so I like, my only conclusion to draw is that I have the wrong audience. And now I need to go build another audience that like has more money, or like that has more time, or what, like whatever. Right. And so instead of just handling the objection, we spend all this time, energy, and effort trying to build a new audience so that we don't have to have those conversations. Like, it makes no sense. And it's what keeps so many people spinning their wheels in the online space for so long, when instead it's like, okay, well, what if you followed up with the audience you had? What if we had objection handling conversations with the audience you had? What if we didn't make it wrong that you were trying to help them get a thing that they want, that they have something in the way of? Oh, wait, that's our job as coaches. Like, right? Does this make sense? So yes, you might not want to go at it with very chasey, forceful, desperate energy. I very much agree with that piece. But again, I think what happens is it sort of gets, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, instead of just being like, yes, we don't want to bring that energy, it turns into like, don't do any of those things. Does that make sense? So it's like, I can still do those things and have totally different energy in doing it. And that's actually the more important conversation than just like, don't chase, let them go. Bye. You know what I mean? Right. Yeah. Sonia said, yep. Michelle said, ooh, this just made me think of it in terms of relationships. Like if I went on a date with someone, but they never texted me back to say, hey, had a great time, I'd love to see you again, because they didn't want to seem pushy, I'd probably spin out on all these stories about how they hated me and our date. 100%. Not only would you spin out on all these stories, you wouldn't ever go on a second date with them, right? Like, you know what I mean? So it's like, I want the sale, but I'm not willing to ask for it. Or like, I want the date, but am I willing to ask for it? Like, yes, I need to not be like super pushy and desperate about it and text you 52 times that night. But like, there is a very large gray area between those things, right? Patricia said, for me, I was like, it's too expensive. I need to change it, but I just need to go deeper with my people to get to the root of the objection. Exactly, Patricia. Perfectly said. Yes, Chelsea, right? So that's the thing, is like what we sometimes want to do is change all this surface stuff. Like we want to rebuild our audience, or we want to change our offer, we want to mess with our pricing. And like, I'm not saying those things are never things, but what I see with clients more often than not is when they're feeling like, oh, I should just change all my pricing. It's like, what if we just looked at objections first? What if we just got better at sitting with our humans in the stuff, right? And something I always think about that helps me a lot is, I'll just use like my offer as an example, right? But like most of my clients, before they're like, hiring me in that way, like have never spent that much money on anything just for themselves besides like a car or a home, right? So I'm asking them to invest in themselves on an entirely new level than they ever have, and maybe the biggest way that they ever have. For me, I'm asking them to pay me 10% of their revenue, right? But like, I expect them to have no feelings or thoughts or stuff come up around that. It's so damn unfair, right? So then I think what happens is we can quickly like get caught up in this marketing that says like, if your people are ever stuck, you don't have premium clients, or you don't have high-end clients, or whatever. Like, who has heard that messaging? That messaging makes me insane, because it's basically like, I want people that have a very specific certain set of problems that I can probably support them in. But if they bring any other problem or challenge whatsoever, they're not a good person, or they're not high end, or whatever. Like, or they're just a human and they're making the biggest investment of their lives in themselves. Like, can we give a tremendous amount of grace and compassion through that? And can we sit with that? And for me, again, that's sort of the difference of like how we can make overcoming objections feel really feminine. Because for me, like that feminine nurturing space of like, you're bringing me these huge challenges, like how do I sit with you and hold space for that and help you process that, is the coolest, best thing I can do. And again, is so far from the masculine, pushy, force it dynamic. But think about how not nurturing it is, and how not the vibe that we want to do is if somebody is having this struggle and they bring it to us and we're kind of just like, okay, yeah, well, let me know when you're ready. Right? Like that would be like me working with my clients and then being like, oh, I'm really freaked out to like whatever launch this thing. And I'm like, okay, well, just let me know when you're ready then. Like the complete opposite of what we're supposed to do, right? Oh yeah, Chelsea said, or the ideal of ideal paying client. Exactly. I can't. Michelle said, I think you said that usually the reason people have objections is the exact reason they need to hire you. Exactly. It's sure a catch-22 and requires someone to really step out of their comfort zone to invest, which is why that yes is so powerful when it does happen. Exactly. And what Michelle is saying that I talked about before is like the same reason they need to hire you is also the reason they are having an objection a lot of times. Like, for example, if you're like a business coach that's helping someone get their first few clients, like the reason they need to hire you is because they want to make more money in their business. The reason they might have an objection to hiring you is because they're not yet making enough money in their business. So it's like the same thing, right? And so it's like, how can I draw in a client with that problem, but not be willing to talk about this piece of the problem? Again, it's so crazy to me. And I think that, I mean, I'm just going to say it because it needs to be said, which is like, I think that's how we get into some of these like weird relationship dynamics in our industry that almost become culty in a way, because it's like, I'm supposed to be bringing this like perfect version of myself to this coach, so she knows that I'm like an ideal client and that I'm, premium, and like, no, you're supposed to be getting help from someone that's going to help you. Like that's what's actually supposed to be happening here. Right. And so anything that says like we shouldn't be able to support our people through that process, I think is one, not strategic. And it's again, ignoring fundamental, well-studied business principles. And two, it's really like putting us in this space of kind of being like, someone has to come to me so perfect, but then also I'm selling them a solution. And it really gets weird in terms of power dynamics and stuff like that, because it's it's sort of asking for two things that can't be true at the same time, like, right, like that dynamic I was saying earlier. So I think it's just really important to acknowledge that. Yeah, let me know when you're ready. Exactly. It drives me crazy. I think it's just really important to acknowledge that and see that, like, wait, what if I wasn't doing anything wrong by being willing to lean into objections? What if I didn't have to make that a pushy thing? But what if I was like the only one willing to hold space for that? I know a couple experiences I've had on discovery calls where I just like really dove into that conversation with someone when they had a stuck point. And I remember someone hiring me specifically because she said, you know, I talked to you and several other coaches. You were the only one that was like, tell me more about that. Talk to me about that. And you like sat with me in that, where everyone else was pretty much just like, well, if you want it, you'll figure it out. Right? Like, no, that's not the thing. And so we really want to treat people on the front end how we want them to assume we'll treat them on the back end. Again, I'm not saying you have to coach them for free, but to be trying to sell an experience where you hold all this space and provide all this support and then be kind of unwilling to hold any of the space for it on the front end just sends really mixed signals. And I think it really leaves a lot of money on the table, honestly. You know, I don't think we have to overcome objections, but I do think if we're not, we have to be okay with the fact that like, we're just going to leave money on the table. And is that okay? You know, but what we can do is reframe how we're thinking about them and what the experience feels like for us to do it. Does that make sense? So the number one thing that we can look at is like, how do I feel about overcoming objections? Because for me, like I personally, I mean, I haven't done a sales call in a long time. Unfortunately, I really miss them, but I find it really juicy. Like, I'm like, oh, okay, let's get into that. Yes, tell me more. Like, I think it is a sign of a very, very positive sales call when someone's willing to share their objection with me, because it means I created enough of a safe space that they were willing to tell me that. Because trust me, anyone that's buying your shit has an objection that could come up, whether it's time, money, readiness, whatever. Like, it's very rare that we're making these big investments in ourselves that don't have some thoughts of like, ooh, should I behind them, right? And so if you're creating a safe enough space that someone's willing to bring that to you, congratulations, you're doing great. Now create a safe enough space that y'all can talk about it and talk through it together. And then you're going to win the sale way more effectively. But like, if you're like constantly having calls and then people are ghosting, well, it might be because you're not creating enough space on the call for them to share the objection on the call. I'm not saying that that's always true, but I do think a lot of the time it is, because they feel like, oh, I'm supposed to kind of like show up here in a certain way, or you're not inviting the objection enough, maybe because you're freaked out to hold space for that, which totally makes sense. But if you're having great calls and then people are ghosting a lot, you can kind of reliably know it's probably because an objection, and you really have some big opportunity there. Michelle said, curious to hear your thoughts on this topic when selling high ticket one-on-one versus like a lower ticket course. Yeah, totally. Patricia said, I love to get deeper and see real why is to build a special connection. Yes. Do you feel like people who get on a call with you these days have less objections to working with you now that you have such a long wait list? My thought being the people who get on a call know they want to work with you if they waited as long as they did. I don't think it's because I have such a long wait list, Michelle. I think it's because they've consumed enough of my content that they feel more bought into that and more sold on me, right? But I think it's still the same thing on being sold on yourself. Like, I would still happily talk someone through money or readiness objection or whatever. It's kind of like we were talking about with the golden ticket thing. You know, I have, gosh, I think almost 500 people on the wait list at this point, maybe even more, I don't know. But only like 40 people applied to get the golden ticket. One, I think it's because we didn't share the price. And I think a lot of people made a bunch of assumptions. And two, because there's still a ton of reasons, like maybe they don't feel like they're ready right now. Maybe it is freaking them out to like be filling out an application for something they don't know the price of. Maybe, right? But like, if I needed to, I would be happy to speak to all of those. And so I think that that's really where it is. But your other question in terms of like one-on-one versus low ticket, I will get to in 1 second, but yeah, it makes sense regarding the content. Yeah. I say this and I totally had objections to doing literally, so much so that I said no the first time. Exactly, right? And obviously that's a slightly different thing. Like I do want to make sure that that feels like right thing, right time for you. And of course we still want to do that when we're overcoming objections. That's another point I want to make today, which is like, I think people think that overcoming objections is about getting someone to a yes. But what I always teach in my sales course is that it's about finding out what's going on for that person. It doesn't have to be about getting them to a yes. So like Michelle's example with saying no to a season of literally, like that actually made the most sense for her then. So it wasn't about me pushing her or whatever. It was about figuring out what was really going on there. And so then I wasn't walking away being like, I can't believe she said no. Why'd she say no? Oh my God. Da, da, da. I knew exactly why she said no. And it made a lot of sense. And then when the time was right, it came back around. And so that's often what happens with sales too, is that if you're willing to sit with someone through that, one, you don't have to walk away being like, but I don't know why they didn't buy. And two, it often comes back around because what was maybe keeping them stuck before is something that you help them reframe and then they work through and then they're ready to purchase from you. Like those things happen all the time. Right. You just said it, which was ultimately the right decision for me. Exactly. So again, it doesn't have to be about forcing them into a yes. In fact, it really shouldn't be. It really gets to be about having the conversation. Just like same thing in coaching, right? I may really want one of my clients to do something, but I don't have to be right. Do you know what I mean? It's about just having the conversation. If ultimately I'm suggesting it and they choose not to, that's still okay. But it's about having the conversation. Another piece of it is that I think where objection handling gets a really bad rap is that a lot of people will try to objection handle when they don't even know you're a yes, right? So for me, helping someone through objections is basically like, they're telling me they want to work with me and there's something keeping them stuck from that. So it's almost like what Laura and I were talking about last week. If y'all watched that live stream of how, we were talking about the difference between, was she having a mindset block around not scaling with group programs, or did she just not have the desire? Right. And it was like, well, do you want the end result and there's something blocking you, or do you just not want that end result? And that's where I think objection handling gets a really like poor taste in people's mouths in our space, is because people will start trying to objection handle before they even know if you really want their thing. So for me, like, I would want to know, like, are you a full yes to me in this program and there's something keeping you stuck? Cool, let's talk about that. But if you are not a full yes to like, this is it for me, this is the right thing, then yeah, it makes no sense for me to talk to you about your money objection because you don't even know that this is the right thing for you. So of course it's going to feel super weird and shitty if I'm pushing you super hard on a money objection when that is not even the issue here. So I think sometimes people have like really bad experiences with this and they're like, oh my God, I never want to handle objections because somebody did that to me and it felt bad. And almost every time I'm like, well, what happened? Tell me more. It's usually that they weren't even sold on the thing. You know what I mean? Hey, Linz. Yes, love this reminder about helping them to get to the best decision for them. Exactly. My clients have so much fear because of where they are in their life and never want fear to be the place they're making decisions from. I want them to learn to be empowered in the decision-making process. Exactly. In order to figure that out, do you just ask, like, if they're a full yes? Yeah, totally, Jess. So I would just say something like, listen, whatever their thing is, like, that's feeling sticky. Like, okay, so if it wasn't for the money, is this the right program and right time for you? And I would see what they said there. Like, if they were like 100%, like, I need this, this is it, I want this so bad, but I'm freaked out about the money. Okay, great. Let's have a conversation then, right? If I said, hey, like, apart from the money, is this the right thing, the right time? They're like, I don't know. I mean, because then we're going to have a whole different conversation. But it's so important to just ask that, because it's sort of like in coaching, right? Like, if you come to your coach and you're like, hey, can you help me create this launch plan? Like, I'm going to want to know, like, okay, is this the right thing, right time? And you're a full yes to it before we go create the launch plan, right? So it's so similar in that way of like, let's make sure we're working toward the thing you really want. And that's when objection handling feels nurturing, because it feels like you're helping someone get what they truly want, instead of it feeling really, really pushy, because it feels like you're trying to push them into something that they haven't even really said they want, right? Yes, exactly, Sonia. Yes. And let's talk about what's stopping you if you're a full yes. Perfect. So simple. Yes, exactly. So what Sonia wrote is exactly it, right? We can just ask, like, and honestly, most people will really appreciate that. And it's also really clarifying for them to be asked that, because you know how our brains are, like, there's a million things swirling around when we're considering something like that. And so sometimes for someone to just stop us and be like, hey, wait, can I just ask, if are you fully yes to this right now? If it wasn't for the money, would this be the right thing for you? Okay, let me think about that for a minute. Like, it can really take the sales process in a whole new direction, because someone actually gets to stop and sit with that and think about it and really get clear on, like, wait, yes, I am a full yes to this. How, like, help me get out of my own way, kind of thing. And then they're bought into that conversation too, where again, it would be totally different. Like, imagine being on a sales call and you're like not sure if you're the right fit, and then they're talking to you about money objections the whole time, and you're like, why does this feel so bad? Well, of course it feels bad. You don't even know if this is the thing you want to buy, right? So we want to get to that place first, and then objections after that. Because sorry, I'm like so thirsty today. Because that's really where it's going to feel good to people, and where it's going to feel good to you, because it feels like you're helping someone get the thing they say they want, versus you're trying to push someone into something that they haven't even fully co-signed on wanting yet. And again, that's the difference in like the don't chase mentality. Like, yeah, don't chase someone who hasn't fully told you they want this thing. But if they have told you this is 100% the thing for them, how can you not want to sit with them in that conversation? Or how can we pretend that that wouldn't be beneficial for us and for them, right? Might it be a more uncomfortable conversation? Maybe, but like, we have to be willing to do those things. As a coach, I have to be willing every single day to have uncomfortable conversations in service of my clients. And so I see it the same here, right? Hey, Jill, she said, yes, that's so true. Okay, so let's talk about it based on what Michelle's question was, which is like, how is it different for high ticket, like one-on-one versus like, say, a group program or course? And for me, it's similar, but like executed differently. So meaning, in a one-on-one container, what I'm going to do is just find out a lot more about what's going on for them, what it's bringing up, all that kind of stuff. And I'm going to talk to them and really treat it like coaching, in the sense of, hey, you have this thing you want, you have this thing that's in your way, let's coach around that. On the like your one-to-many selling, ideally you have enough one-to-one selling under your belt that you just translate all of that to the one-to-many selling. So for me, that is one thing where I really recommend people do one-to-one selling first, so that they can learn enough of what their people's challenges and objections and all of that are, so that they can apply it to one-to-many selling. But like, say, let's use that example I was using earlier of like, you're a business coach that helps people get their first few clients. Well, say you've had a ton of sales calls like that, and well, they're always freaked out about like spending money before they've gotten a client. They're always feeling really uncertain about like if they can really make this work, or they're not sure if they're ready yet. Well, great. You already know their stuff so intimately that it should be easy to go have that conversation one-to-many, in a story, in an email, in a live, whatever, because you've had enough of those conversations one-on-one to know what the thought process is behind it, so you can address it more publicly, right? So it's not like every single person is throwing you a totally wild objection that you've absolutely never heard of. 9 times out of 10, they all sound pretty similar. And so once you've gotten enough of those similarities in your audience, then you can go speak to it publicly way, way, way more effectively and have really successful launches because you're addressing the objections, not because you're not, right? For me, I think any launch that doesn't take the time to address the objections that could be keeping people stuck is a launch that's just leaving money on the table, like we said earlier, right? And not only is it leaving money on the table, I think that it is, how do I want to say it? I think that it is a really big missed opportunity to build a relationship with your people. Because I think that one of the beautiful ways that we build relationship is by being willing to say, I see you in this. I get it. I know it's tough. And like, here's the way you could think about it. So that relationship is built so strong over time because you're kind of meeting them where they're at and in what's challenging them, as opposed to just trying to meet them very far down the road. Like, I'm not saying don't show them possibility. Absolutely. We make sales from possibility, but that whole curve, we want to meet them on that, from like where they're at right now to where they want to go. And so if we spend an entire launch just talking about where they want to go and never anything that's keeping them stuck, I think we're just missing really good relationship building opportunities there to be like, I get you. I understand. I know what it's like to support someone that's feeling stuck in this way. That is such a moment. So whether they buy from you that launch or the next one, you've still built a deeper connection than you ever possibly could have by just being like, look at all these fancy results you could get. Yes, do that. By all means, talk about that, but don't miss out on this other part. And again, remember, this is the part that gets to be feminine and nurturing. Like, your sales emails don't have to be like, if you're not buying, you don't want it bad enough kind of shit. Like, they get to be like, hey, if you're feeling like you should make sales before you've ever signed up for this course, I want to have a conversation with you. I want this email to be for you. Here's what I want you to know. Like, that's the juicy stuff. Imagine being stuck in that place and getting that email. That's the kind of shit that makes people buy, because they're like, shit, that's why I need coaching, because she freaking read my mind and helped me like reframe it and give me a new way to think about it, you know, as opposed to being so stuck in your problem on your own that, number one, you think no one else has that problem but you. But number two, nothing that I say to you is helping you get out of that. You're like, yeah, cool. I would love to like make all this money one day, whatever. But until I'm like, and here's how you're feeling right now, and here's how you can go from here to here, it's not going to connect in the same way. Does that make sense? So again, it doesn't have to be chasey or forceful or pushy or whatever. It just gets to be like, okay, your people have a challenge. Can we talk to them about it as much as possible to help them move through it? I also think what happens sometimes too in our space is that there's sort of this mentality of like, if you speak to the problem, you're going to get people with problems. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? That kind of idea of like, don't, it's almost like this. It just reminds me of this thing that we're like all tiptoeing around. It's like this giant like animal that we like don't want to wake from sleeping because it will like jump up and bite us or something like that, versus like, yeah, I'm not saying go speak to people and say like, if you have $0 in your bank account, this program is for you, right? That's probably not ideal either. But I am saying that the animal is in the room, whether you want it to be or not. So you either get to pick that you're going to be the person who's speaking to it and helping people overcome it, or you get to be the one that's just like tiptoeing around it, not wanting to say anything so it doesn't get scared. Like, that just makes no sense to me, right? Michelle says, unless it's a free program. Right. Like, but even for that, I mean, I totally agree with, like, I'm not saying you have to overcome objections with every single thing ever. For a free program, maybe you just choose not to, but like, there's probably even objections to someone doing a free program of yours. And so if you, for example, aren't getting as many signups as you would like into a free event you're doing, shit, that might be worth looking at too, right? Like, maybe you're not getting as many signups to your free event because people are freaked out about how much time it's going to take them or something. Amazing. Can we speak to that? Like, I think with underlying thing is here that I feel like our industry just always misses. I see what you meant, Michelle, but thank you. That gave me a good tangent to go on otherwise. I meant if you have $0 in your bank account, this free program is for you too. Yes, totally. But anyway, that was perfect that I misunderstood because that was a good point anyway. But I think what our industry always misses, and you guys know this because I talk about it in a variety of different ways and angles, right? Is that us humans are very nuanced and we're very driven by all the underlying stuff and stories underneath it. So it's not one of those situations of like, if they just wanted it or were serious, they would just do it. No, it's not, right? It's here to help bring out the good lazy rants, right? We're always having other things come up. And when we can actually look at those things and remember that we're humans with all of these layers and speak to those, then we're going to just get better results. And if we're trying to treat our audience as though, like, if I just dangle one shiny carrot, you should come and take it. And if you don't, something is wrong. That's not how it works, right? Yes, many people have, or my people have a ton of objections about free shit. Totally, Michelle. Alessia says so true. Even a free program, there are objections because we're all so busy. We need to tell why it's relevant for them, right? Why it's relevant for them, and also what might be keeping them stuck from that. So it's like if it's that they're busy, cool. Like, what else can we say about that? You know, I would be so excited to talk about, like, if you think you're too busy to do this, let me tell you this, right? I think that that's where we feel really empowered in the sales process because it feels like we're not just kind of at the mercy of that. It feels like we can go do something about it. And I think it's where our people are most moved by us because so few people are actually doing this in our space that if you're the one doing it and they're like, oh shit, she called out exactly what I was thinking. Oh, I probably do need to work with her. That's what we want, right? It's not like, oh, her like outcome for this messaging challenge was better than so-and-so's outcome for this messaging challenge. Like, again, it's usually so much deeper than that. And I think just that acknowledgement is so key. So whether we want to, acknowledge it or not, your people have objections. And so we can treat them as the big scary animal sitting in the room that we don't want to wake. Or we can be like, nope, that's there. I'm going to acknowledge it. I'm going to speak to it. I'm going to address it, because not speaking to it doesn't mean they go away. It just means you really narrowed your audience pool because you're expecting them to handle them on their own without any of your help. So your people are going to have to handle objections to hire you one way or another. It's just, are you going to be part of that solution or not? And if you choose not to, it's fine. Again, you're just narrowing your audience pool. But like, this idea of like an audience without objections is not a real thing. I mean, you think about your own buying behavior. Like, I'm sure you have plenty of objections to everyday things that you buy all the time. Like, oh, should I really get that? Should I do that? I don't know. Like, it's not that simple, right? And so I always watch my own buying behavior and I'm like, oh my God, if I want this back and forth on a pair of freaking Lululemon leggings or whatever, imagine how my people feel. Imagine, how much work they're having to do to pay for a several $1,000 and 10% of their business thing. So I'm either going to be part of that or I'm not. But like, if I'm going to be part of it, I'm going to personally feel way more empowered in the process too. Yes, exactly, Jill. Jill says that's a fairy tale because it is, right? Yes, exactly. It can be scary for them to change. Totally. Michelle said, I think at some point, maybe it was an episode of Literally, you said what makes a great coach is that you're willing to say the thing. That really liberated me in my coaching, baby Michelle, back in the day. Yeah. It's because you're willing to say the thing. And what makes a great marketer is also because you're willing to say the thing, right? And so if you're willing to be like, hey, you're probably just scared to buy this thing because blah, 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 you're going to have exponentially better results than if you're like, just take it. They don't have objections. I don't want them to. Trust me, they have objections. It's just, are you going to help them handle it or not? Right. Yes. Hi, tuning in while baby naps and toddler watches videos. Woo, mom time. Hey, Emily, happy to have you. Nailing it with the mom time. So good. Michelle said, love spinning out in the small decision. Let's not forget Michelle's king cake episode. Right. If you guys listen to literally, Michelle completely spun out on if she was getting this king cake or not. So it's like, if that is how intense it is for just deciding if you're going to get a cake, right? Imagine deciding to invest thousands of dollars in a program. Like, we just have to start acknowledging it. And I think that any messaging that tells us that that's not our problem as the business owner is not actually real business, in my opinion. Like, that is more of like the, I am sitting on my golden throne and like, you should not approach me with your objections kind of stuff. It's not like I'm a CEO and I'm trying to figure out how to get sales. Like, that's the difference. You know what I mean? Yes, people want to be coached. I totally agree with that, Emily. Lindsay said, all my people have objections. I have to figure out how to overcome them or no one is buying. Right. Or Lindsay, like, you could be in a position where you were like, well, I'm unwilling to do that, and then really feel stuck and frustrated in your business for a very long time. But because you have a willingness there, yeah, it might feel frustrating at different times, but like, you have your power back is kind of the point, right? And I think that's what's so important here. Objection handling isn't just really useful for clients, it's really useful for us too, because it returns our power to us, because it doesn't feel like we're just sitting here waiting for the perfect person to arrive. It feels like we're willing to have those conversations. I love asking my clients to tell me verbatim what their potential clients are saying. The objection is so specific to each person. Meet them where they're at, get curious, have a real combo. Exactly. It's kind of that simple, right? And Jill said people have objections even over low level or low price offers. 100%. Yep. Objections exist. I love the way you explain it. Thank you, Jill. Kristen said, for me, there's also a difference between being real or being fake. Fake on the surface, and I know what I want all day. Oops. And I know what I want all day there. Yeah. I think that what you're saying, Kristen, is like, there's a way to kind of just be like, oh, well, like, oh, money is just an objection. Can you just like go take out a credit card, versus like what's actually under the money objection? I think that's a whole different conversation for another day, but that's so important too. Like, again, it's not as simple as we all want it to be, in the sense of like how humans work and make decisions, right? I think sales can be really simple in that we're just like, hey, what's your challenge? And then how can we talk about it? But us humans are not so simple. Again, see Michelle's cake episode. Like, it is not as easy as you just want the cake and then you go get the cake, right? Wouldn't that be great if it was, but it's not. And so the acknowledgement of that, I think, is just really the most important thing you can do, both in your marketing, in your launch, in your sales strategy, and in your one-on-one conversation. So I think that's where people get themselves tripped up a lot too, is that they're kind of only doing one or the other, but not both. It's like, are you talking about it outwardly, and are you talking about it privately with someone? I know some people that are like, well, I'll talk about it behind the scenes all day, but I'm like freaked out to say it like to everyone. Or the opposite, where it's like, oh, I'll always write about it in content, but it freaks me out to do it on a one-on-one call. When you're doing both of those things, you're going to be amazed at how it transforms your sales process. Emily says, simple, but not easy. Yes. I love objections. I bake them into my content and encourage my clients to do the same. What are people saying? Exactly. What's your challenge? Let's talk about it. 100%. Like, the more we know these things, the more we get to help address them, the more we keep like, trying to not have someone say them to us, because then we're doing something wrong, the more we're just missing out on like the very, very, very basic opportunities of business, right? Lindsay said, I see objection handling as permission giving, permission for people to be honest with themselves about what they want and what is coming up for them. Right. And again, what a beautiful way to start a coaching relationship is them coming to you and being honest about what they want, what is coming up for them. Like, can you think of anything better? But again, like, I think we get in this place where it feels like it's one or the other. It's either like, I have to like push them to a yes, which you do not have to do by objection handling, or how dare they bring me an objection? Like, I just think we've gotten into such a weird place in our industry where we're like pedestaling ourselves too much, where it's just like, how dare someone like bring that? And I think it's so unhelpful because it's like, well, are they hiring you to like bring challenges to you? And so also think about that when you're the buyer. If someone wants nothing to do with your objections, you can pretty reliably guess how they're going to support you in a container, to be perfectly honest. So keep that in mind and take that into consideration. If someone wants nothing to do with your challenges on the front end, you can kind of make some assumptions that they might not want nothing to do with your challenges on the back end, even if that's what you're hiring them for. I'm not saying that's true across the board. I think some people are just really freaked out to objection handle. So that is not 100% true, but it's worth thinking about, it's worth thinking about like, hey, if I can't tell you a hard thing and have you hold some space for me here, like before you've gotten the sale, you might not want to do that after the sale. So that's something to think about too, because again, it's not this super pushy thing. It can be the nurturing, space holding, seeing you where you're at, finding out what's going on and really leaning into that. Yeah, it's not a dichotomy. I love understanding my clients' thoughts and reasons. Exactly. So you're going to want to do that on every end, right? Or like Lindsay loves giving her clients permission to be where they are. And so she's going to want to do that in the sales process and in her coaching. Like that alignment is something that's really, really important. Like, can you be on the front end how you intend to be on the back end? And can those things be the same instead of trying to have them be completely different, right? I think there's some BS marketing that says it's got to be a hell yes or they're a no, and real change isn't like that. Right. Are you a hell yes or no? Like, listen, do I want my people to get to a hell yes by the time they're buying? 100%. Do I have any assumption that they should be that immediately before we've ever even dove into some of these conversations? Of course not. Right? Of course not. And I think that, again, like, what we do in our space a lot is just take away the humanity of it. So it's basically just like, don't have challenges, don't have issues, be a full yes, even if it's like the biggest investment you've ever made. Don't think twice about it. Like, we just take away all the humanness and try to pretend that that's how it should be, because that's what makes us more comfortable, right? Like, because it would be way more comfortable to make the sale if you didn't bring any of this, these challenges to me. But it's not about like making your coach comfortable. It should not be about that in the sales process. And it definitely shouldn't be about that on the back end. So if like someone only wants you to buy from them if you're making them comfortable, again, make some correlations to how that might look in a coaching container, right? Michelle said, one of my favorite objections I held a client through was after she said yes, a family member passed, and she came back and was like, I don't know if now is the right time, but she was still a yes, and just being able to hold her through that and give her all the permission around it led to us working together, and it all ended up working out beautifully for her. Plus now she's a mama, which is an amazing bonus there. So good. But right, like I think 1000% that's a great example, because I think something obviously really big happened in her life that made her second guess stuff, and she needed a little support and permission to process through what that looked like for her. And that's what a lot of us need, is like, we just need the space and permission to be able to process that. And then often we'll get to yes, but if you hadn't held that space for her brain might have just been like, okay, we just can't right now, because it was like in a lot of upheaval and it didn't have someone to just like sit and hold that conversation. And she could have missed out on a really beautiful experience, and you could have missed out on the sale, right? So I think that that's a perfect example of like, this is how these things go together, where it really serves us, it really serves our people. And that overlap of overcoming objections is the magic. And the idea that you wouldn't do that, right, is crazy when you really think about it. Like, she would come to you and be like, I don't know if now is the right time because I had a family member pass. And you're like, okay, well, let me know when it is. No, right? Like, this is not like an offensive thing. Like, I think that's the last thing I kind of wanted to say, although I feel like I kind of already made that point, is like, all right, bye, Jess. Oh, thank you, Emily. Great examples in coaching. Yes. Is I think that we almost treat it as offensive. Hold on. I just accidentally hit the thing. We almost treat it as offensive if someone has an objection. And I think this is where we just have to start separating ourselves in our business. Like, to me, there is nothing offensive about someone having an objection. I appreciate that they're willing to bring it to me. And I love that we get to have that conversation. It has nothing to do with me or my value. And that's why it's really easy for me to lean into. When it has to do with you and your value and it feels offensive is when there's some work that's still to be done there, where it feels like, again, that kind of mentality of like, someone shouldn't bring me that or whatever. It's like, that's kind of how we know that we have other stuff at play there and that we're not feeling super separate from our business, because it feels so personal and it feels like they're doing something to us versus like they're having a challenge. Again, just like in coaching, where it's like my clients may be having a really hard week in their business, but it's not me that they're mad at, right? But they might just be like really having a rough coaching session because of it. And like my job is to be able to hold the space for that without taking it personally and now making it a whole thing about me. It's not, it's about them, right? Right. Jill said, yes, we have to get out of our feelings and realize that it's an opportunity for a conversation. Thank you, Sonia. Yes, 100%. And like, that's what all of this is, right? Like you just said coaching perfectly too. Like it has to not be about us and for us to get out of our, emotions of it and be willing to just kind of like be present with that person. It does not have to be like a personal attack. So I said a million things today in no specific order whatsoever, but I hope these thoughts on objections were helpful. That's why I just titled it, Let's Talk Overcoming Objections, because I just wanted to be able to sit here and talk about it with y'all. And I think we did that perfectly. So I hope this was helpful. I hope this reframes it for you, whether it's thinking about it in like a more feminine or nurturing way, realizing that it does not have to be personal, seeing it as like the best type of coaching you can do. Like, I just hope that it reminds you that this is like a really, really smart and helpful piece of your sales process, both practically and from an empowerment standpoint. And when you can lean into that, it really will make all the difference. So I hope that you guys have a beautiful week. Remember, if you comment, you're entered to win the content bundle. I love and appreciate y'all for being here. Oh, thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Jill. And just hope that you guys have a great week, and I'll see you next week. All right. Bye, y'all.